Wishing to get a better view than I had yet had of the ocean, I made a visit to Cape Cod in June 1850. I have been accustomed to make excursions to the ponds within 10 miles of Concord, but latterly I have extended my excursions to the seashore. I did not see why I might not make a book on Cape Cod. Cape Cod is the bared and bended arm of Massachusetts. The shoulder is at Buzzards Bay, the elbow or crazy bone at Cape Malabar, the wrist at Truro, and the sandy fist at Provincetown. Late in the afternoon, we rode through Brewster. There were many of the modern American houses here, such as they turn out at Cambridgeport, standing on the sand. I call them American because they are paid for by Americans and put up by American carpenters. But they are only Eastern stuff disguised with white paint. The least interesting kind of driftwood to me. Generally, the old-fashioned and unpainted houses on the Cape looked more comfortable as well as picturesque. The most foreign and picturesque structures on the Cape to an inlander are the windmills. Gray-looking octagonal towers with long timbers slanting to the ground in the rear, and there resting on a cartwheel by which their fans are turned round to face the wind. They looked loose and slightly locomotive, like huge wounded birds trailing a wing or a leg, and reminded one of pictures of the Netherlands. We were surprised to hear of the great crops of corn, which are still raised in Eastham. Our landlord in Orleans told us he raised 300 or 400 bushels annually. I was glad to have got out of the towns. My spirits rose in proportion to the outward dreariness. Everything indicated that we had reached a strange shore. The road was a mere lane. Everything told of the sea, even when we did not see its waste or hear its roar. There I had got the Cape under me, as much as if I were riding it barebacked. It was not as on the map or seen from the stagecoach, but there I found it all out of doors, huge and real, Cape Cod, as it cannot be represented on a map. Color it as you will. Mackerel gulls were all the while flying over our heads and amid the breakers, quite at home in the storm. And we saw that they were adapted to their circumstances rather by their spirits than their bodies. Having walked about 8 miles since we struck the beach, we discovered 2 or 3 sober-looking houses within half a mile. Their garrets were apparently so full of chambers that their roofs could hardly lie down straight. and we did not doubt that there was room for us there. A grisly-looking man appeared. He asked, at first suspiciously, where we were from and what our business was, to which we returned plain answers. The winds howled around the house and made the fireboards as well as the casements rattle well that night. She got the breakfast with dispatch, and meanwhile the old man resumed his stories, ejecting his tobacco juice right and left into the fire behind him, without regard to the various dishes which were there preparing. At breakfast we had eels, buttermilk cake, cold bread, green beans, donuts, and tea. The old man talked a steady stream. I ate of the applesauce and donuts, which I thought had sustained the least detriment from the old man's shots. But my companion refused the applesauce and ate of the hot cake and green beans, which had appeared to him to occupy the safest part of the hearth. About Long Point in the summer, you commonly see them catching lobsters for the New York market. Or rather, the lobsters catch themselves, for they cling to the netting on which the bait is placed of their own accord, and thus are drawn up. Man needs to know but little more than a lobster in order to catch him in his traps. To the fisherman, the Cape itself is a sort of store ship laden with supplies, and indeed, sea phrases are as common on it as on board a vessel. The inhabitants of the Cape are often at once farmers and sea rovers. A farmer in Wellfleet who had raised 50 bushels of potatoes the previous year and had extensive salt works pointed to his schooner which lay in sight, in which he and his man and boy occasionally ran down the coast trading as far as the Capes of Virginia. The seashore is a sort of neutral ground, a most advantageous point from which to contemplate this world. It is a wild, rank place, and there is no flattery in it. There is naked nature, inhumanly sincere, wasting no thought on man, nibbling at the cliffy shore where gulls squeal amid the spray. Here's the spring of springs, the waterfall of waterfalls. A storm in the fall or winter is the time to visit it. A lighthouse or a fisherman's hut, the true hotel. A man may stand here and put all America behind him.